Hello, everyone. This is Tony from Refinement Not Retirement, here to talk more about one of our most important, impactful life refinements. And I'm talking about going vegan. And I'm here to talk about it this time, unlike last time, with my lovely wife, Christine. Say hi, Chris.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning if you're listening to it.
Whenever you're
Morning
listening
for
to it.
us. Yeah.
So we've covered this topic before, the whole idea of veganism and living a plant-based life, eating a plant-based array of foods. And I would encourage you to check out our previous episodes. You can easily go through the list of episodes. Of course, we talk about loads and loads of things on this podcast, but you can easily tell, I think, from the title of the episode, if you want to check out our respective journeys, Christine's and mine, of going vegan late in life, in our 60s, then you can pick out those episodes and you'll see one that was particularly popular, where Christine talked about how the news that I had gone vegan, complete shock for her, ruined her life. So that's quite a fun one to listen to.
Yeah. I think actually just quickly that you were before you were 60, because if you remember, I took you away for a surprise 60th birthday to Italy.
Mhm.
And the day before we'd had a family dinner party, and we'd had found a female chef who came to the home and cooked, and it was all specifically done. It was Indian food because that's one of our favorite foods, and it's an easy one to convert. And in fact, we had Indian. It wasn't all. I don't think it was all vegan, was it? For some, because a lot of the family
I
weren't. But
don't,
but it was done. It was done ready, especially for you.
I
And
don't
in
think
fact,
that's
everybody
right.
kept saying yes. And if you think everybody kept saying, "Can I have some of the vegan food?" And we're going, "No, that's for Tony because you were the only one really vegan." Oh no,
No,
Tony
no,
and Tom were.
I think that I was pescatarian at that meal, and I'll tell you why I think that.
Oh,
I know that I went vegan at 61, age 61, and I know it was just before our visit to Tuscany.
oh.
So I think that Indian meal that you talk about, which was absolutely fantastic, I think that was while I was still pescatarian.
Oh, okay.
So
Got that wrong then.
So the last episode that I recorded on my own was called "How to Piss Off a Vegan or Make Them Very
Which was great,
Happy."
by the way. I have to say, I haven't said that. It was a fabulous one. Perhaps you're
Thank you.
better off doing them on your own, but it was
No,
very
not at
good.
all, not at all. Much more interesting when you're on with me. But I talked about a couple of things, which I'm not going to go into now because that was probably a bit edgy, that particular one, because I'd been sort of slightly triggered by a friend who told me that it's offensive for vegans to eat fake meats and fake cheeses, and I didn't really understand that. And I talked about, well, the flip side of that for me is that I find it odd that so many people who are animal lovers are content to eat animals. I find that a contradiction. And I probably went on a bit too long about that, but I got great feedback. But all the great feedback I had was from vegans. So,
Of course, yes.
that I would, I'm obviously glad to get any feedback that's positive, and even feedback that isn't, because it helps me to learn. But yeah, I mean, it's no good preaching to the converted, is it? But anyway, this episode, in that episode, that solo episode, I promised to get Christine on here to talk about the actual practicalities from her point of view, because I've never been really ever been a cook of any sort, and I've totally reliant on Christine to feed me. So she's she's done that brilliantly throughout our time together. But it was a big shock to her, as you will find out if you listen to the episode I referenced about when she said that I ruined her life by going vegan. But she was amazing how supportive after having that initial negative reaction, how supportive she became and how she completely revolutionized her approach to cooking and adapted to right at the beginning, and she'll tell you this herself, I'm sure, in a minute, but she didn't go vegan herself straight away, but she did prepare vegan meals for me before she went vegan, and of course since then she's been doing so. And for me, it's the whole thing about going vegan, apart from the obvious benefits that I've talked about previously, health and planet and so on, it just opened up a whole panoply of delicious foods and tastes that I'd never really thought about before. And I've become much more interested in eating and even a little bit in cooking. Perhaps we'll touch on that.
I was going to touch on that actually. So
But I'll let you do that in a
that was
minute.
that
But
was going to be my first introduction
well,
into my bit.
I'll let you talk about that. But I wanted to get Christine on to talk about how she adapted and what she does now and how she finds doing plant-based cooking, because I think it's going to be helpful. Because there's so many people tell us that they are eating more plant-based meals, which is great to hear. Every little step in the right direction, even if it's one day a month, it's something and it helps the overall objectives. But I thought I'd let Christine now take over and talk about her journey to becoming what I think is a fantastic plant-based cook. Go for
Well,
it.
thank you, my lovely. Well, first of all, I was going to say is yes, everybody that knows us and knows you, Tony, family and friends, you've always had a bit of the pee taken out of you, haven't you, over the years for not being, you know, into cooking at all, even when we weren't vegan. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry.
Go for it.
But I'll back up a little bit because all the years we lived in London as a married couple, we had a beautiful home, but it was a very tiny home compared to what we have now. Even though it was lovely and in a beautiful location in Kensington, we couldn't have wished for a nicer location place to live in London. But our kitchen was the tiniest kitchen in the whole world. In fact, we did some renovations, if you remember, in 2012 when we were in Florida. And I worked with a interior designer, and we went backwards and forwards choosing colors and materials and fabrics and blah blah. And the kitchen was moved around, changed around, but you can't make a bigger kitchen out of a galley kitchen that was there. And so it was much nicer, obviously, from 2012, but we really couldn't do a lot in it. And so we ate a lot of ready meals. Waitrose was down the road. It was very easy just to go down and buy two, chicken pieces already done in lime and coriander and stick them in the oven with some new potatoes and some fresh vegetables and fish, because as you said, you were pescatarian. And so, we were eating, sounds very decadent, lobster on a Friday. And, we just didn't, do a lot of cooking at all. And I think, I don't know, I'm not making excuses. I think part of it was the kitchen. You'd have to be in there on your own. You could just about come in and open a bottle of wine, I guess, and two of us could be in there. But really, it wasn't very helpful having any but more than one in a kitchen. So you did become vegan before we left that home, because we didn't leave until 2020. And so again, I really honestly can't remember what I did for you. I really can't remember, because my mind's a blank of the type of food I did. But the whole a whole new world, as you said, a whole new world
Mm.
brightened and opened up when we moved to our beautiful home here in Elmley Castle, where we are sitting, you in your office and me in the kitchen, with a kitchen that's like a whole of our flat probably fitted fitted into this kitchen. Um, and so it really, 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 really helped me, I think, perhaps without even realizing psychologically what a joy it was to be in there and you be in there with me, and for us to, have friends in there and sit around and family and cook and be together. And so the inspiration really started to evolve and started to really change a lot. And being in the countryside, I can't can't explain it any more than that, because we were vegan before we came here. But I'll start off with that's just recently happened, and that is our traditional cooked breakfast that we used to love so much, before we were vegan, and now we love just as much, if not more, I would say, not equally,
Mm.
um, because clearly our taste buds have changed being vegans. People, when we say things are delicious, it probably isn't delicious to non-vegans, but I think one's taste buds do change a lot. But it's not that difficult if you want to do it, um, and that's why I think when we talk about the plant-based meats, it helps us enjoy what we enjoyed before, but without hurting animals. So that to me feels so important. And you have decided, which, and I'm thrilled about, even waking up this morning and you say you've got everything ready for our cooked breakfast, because we can't have it this weekend because we're busy with pickleball Saturday and Sunday. So our lazy Sunday mornings having our cooked vegan breakfast is out of the window. So you said you would do it today. And it's such a joy. And sort of, you wake me up with a cup of tea and you said, everything's ready. What time shall I put the oven on? And you make the most delicious vegan cooked breakfast. We have scrambled egg tofu. We have a lovely back type smoky bacon. Again, this is all plant. Don't, when you hear me say the word bacon, that's the only word I know for it, because that's what I grew up with. So it looks like bacon, smells like bacon, but it's made of plant. So that's really fantastic. Grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, avocado smashed on toast. Today we didn't have baked beans. Sometimes we have baked beans as well, and that you prepared all beautifully this morning, and we sit there having the most yummiest cooked breakfast. And what a wonderful way to start the day. Colourful greens and reds and browns and the toast. And I know everybody go, wow, but it's not real bacon, or it's not real eggs, but
Well, just thinking,
we don't want that.
just interjecting quickly here, that I was, the thing about the cooked breakfast, you think about traditional English foods, and
Yes.
the full English breakfast is the thing that people want, isn't it? Full English breakfast. I was thinking about it this morning. The breakfast, the plant-based breakfast we now do, is for me far more delicious and far more palatable than what all that grease
I
that you.
know,
And I was
exactly.
thinking about that when I was washing up after breakfast this morning. It's just, you just literally put the plates and the pans under the running water and it just floats off.
Yeah.
It's just such a clean way of eating. And you think about what before, it'd all be greasy pans and all this
And that's what's going
fatty
into your
bacon.
body,
That's
and
going into
and
your arteries, and
and clogging up your arteries.
that's
Crazy,
why
crazy.
having, why having going vegan is so good for your, well, one of the reasons it's so good for your health. There are many other reasons, but I mean, the leading heart disease, the leading cause of death is still heart disease. It's ahead of cancer.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
but
because
people, when they ask us, I don't know whether you found this, but when people ask us, why we did it, was it for health or for moral reasons, and we give them our answer, they then say to us, "Well, what do you feel better?" Well, I can't even begin to describe. I mean, of course we feel better. We feel 100% better. There's nothing going into our bodies that could make us feel unwell, is there? Nothing at
No,
all. There's,
cholesterol doesn't come from plants, so you're much better off from a cholesterol perspective.
yeah, fat.
And
There's no
no,
fat.
yeah, well, there is fat in
Well, there is
but
fat.
there's good
Yes, that's
fat. There's
true.
good because
There's
that,
good
like for
fat.
instance,
Yes,
avocados
yes,
have fat, but there's good fat.
yeah,
That's the
yes.
thing,
It's
and
an
it
avocado
doesn't clog
oil,
up
isn't it?
your arteries, which is great. So the other one thing that I did want to mention is coffee, because coffee is a very big part of my life, and I, I make the coffee, and we have a bean to cup machine, which is brilliant. We use delicious uh, uh, Italian coffee beans. But the big challenge I remember going vegan was to replace the dairy milk.
Yes, that's yes.
And but now we've done that. We use Oatly no sugars, and I make that. Anybody who comes around for visit us, or if they're tradesmen working on our home or whatever, and I make them coffee. And almost without exception, people say that they prefer the oat milk to dairy milk.
Yeah,
So,
and I know a lot of people who are, yes, who aren't vegan, and they're the same. They
hmm,
say they even have oat milk at home, and you're right. I mean, you get offered in restaurants and places soya milk or almond milk, and none of those we've discovered work with tea, have we? So we've stopped
no.
taking any type of milk in tea. So we just drink herbal tea now. But
Or
and we did.
occasionally
You're right.
a very weak black tea, which even that I really
Yeah,
like.
which is
And
still
I
yes.
think milk spoils tea, frankly.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
have to say though that I that was one of the those that was one of the last things, if you remember, that I thought I could never give up.
Milk.
Was milk,
Mm,
and I just even when I was everything else was vegan, I still kept having dairy milk in my coffee and in my tea, and I thought I just not don't know how I'm ever going to live without it. It's a bit like it's a bit like people who say, "Oh, I could never live without, I don't know, bacon, or never live without something," and or sugar.
Cheese is what
Yes,
people.
or
Yeah.
cheese. Yeah, but or I was thinking more of in teas and coffees, sugar. We still know people who come round and they'll have 3 or 4 spoonfuls of sugar in their coffee and tea. And I grew up with a lot of sugar in my tea as a child. And people say, "Oh, I couldn't ever give up." But they say, don't they? It takes 3 weeks. If you stop having sugar, it's
Hmm.
awful for the first 3 weeks, and then you can't imagine how you
Ever
could
having it
ever
again?
touch it again.
Yeah.
So it's all it's I to me it's all a case of what one wants to do, and if somebody doesn't want to do it, they're not prepared to even give it a try. They're not even interested when they say, "Well, I couldn't, I couldn't live without my cheese. I couldn't live without my roast beef. I couldn't." It means, you know, they know they could. Everybody knows they can do something if they have to,
Well,
and if
maybe
there's
they
a
don't.
reason.
Maybe they don't. But people
No, well,
are.
maybe they don't. Sometimes it takes an illness for somebody to discover their,
Yeah. I mean,
that they've
I
been
think.
eating bread and wheat, dairy, and they're told they're celiac. Then they have to give it up if they want
Yeah.
to be well.
Anyway,
So,
let's power through this because we haven't got a lot of time left, and I wanted
okay,
to
so
make
you
sure
want
that we talk specifically to help people on what they
about
might do. So, for instance, sticking with breakfast for a minute, we talked about our once a week cooked breakfast. We don't do that every day, of
yeah.
course, but I have for me, I have cereal, but the type of cereal I have is shredded wheat because it's much healthier than all these sugar. Like you were talking about sugar, I try and avoid sugar. I have grape nuts; they don't contain sugar, and always have it with almond milk. I usually put some chai seeds on there, and always blueberries and chopped banana. So that makes a lot, and with almond milk, of course. We use Plenish as the brand that we use because it's, I think, by far the best. And that makes a very, very delicious breakfast. What about your breakfast, really quickly?
Well, you know me, I'm a bit naughty, really. I do have cereal, and I have sort of, what's the word, fads of suddenly, fancying toast and marmalade with a vegan spread. Naturali is one of them, which that was another thing I thought I couldn't live without butter, but the spreads now are so fantastic. I wouldn't even know that I wasn't, having dairy butter.
Naturali is really good. But
Yeah, I
what's
love
the other one you use?
crumpets with
Flora plant.
Naturali, and I
Yeah.
love crumpets and Marmite. I do like cereals. I like Weetabix. I
Yeah.
all sorts of sort of
So that's
cereals like
breakfast.
that.
Oh, the one
So
other thing I would mention is that we occasionally have bagels with cream cheese and sometimes even with plant smoked salmon, which then a
yes, and that's
squeaky
really
bean
good.
makes a
That's a
really, really good one.
they're always bringing out new stuff. I think a few years ago would have been horrific, and I've spoken to people who've been vegans for years, and they could barely get any food at all. But now the supermarkets are full of them, and
Oh,
they're
it's fantastic stuff.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Lunches, I suppose it depends what we're doing, but again, beans on toast is an easy one for us. Toasted cheese and tomato sandwich. They call it cheese, but it's a plant-based, different types of cheese that you can get. There's a company called La Fromagerie who do the most beautiful cheeses like Camembert and Brie and blue cheese and a smoked cheese, which again are all made from various nuts. Um, we'll have just sort of depending on, we'll have soups, homemade soups, bought soups, which again it's like anything. I started originally looking at vegan recipes like a leek and potato soup, but you really don't even need to do that now, because you can put, if I decide I'm going to make a cottage pie, um, you can just look at the recipe. I mean, I know how to do it now without a recipe, but you can take out the minced meat, the minced lamb or the beef, and not even use any alternative. Just use
Beans, lentils,
lentils,
pulses. Yeah.
or use your vegan mince, which I do tend to do because I still like that texture and feel that I'm having that meat substitute, but
Hmm.
without all the bad things that go with it. So that's an easy thing to do, again, with onions and browning off the mince and mushrooms and whatever you want to put in there, all the different vegetables.
Talking about lunches, I did miss my tuna sandwiches, and now, of
Oh
course,
yes, yes.
Squeaky Bean have brought out the most fantastic plant tuna. Squeaky Bean is the make again, and try it. We'd encourage you to try that because it is fantastic.
That is very
You
good. Again,
also
I
use
either cook some
you also use the scrambled tofu product, don't you?
with
Scrambled tofu
mayonnaise,
egg.
with
Yeah,
vegan
make
mayonnaise, which
lovely
is
egg
good.
sandwiches.
Yeah, but it's actually interesting on that tuna because a friend of ours, we were playing pickleball away somewhere, and I'd made us some tuna sandwiches, if you remember our little picnic, and she'd forgotten to bring herself a picnic, and I said, "Would you like one of our tuna baps?" I'd made
Hmm.
rolls with tomatoes in it, and she said, "Oh, that's very kind, thank you very much." Well, her eyes widened like you couldn't believe. And she went, "Wow, this actually tastes and smells like tuna." And she loved it, didn't she?
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
And this is
it's
what you
little
so often
times like
find. You
that.
so often
I know, and
find
I
that.
find that so exciting that people are willing to try it rather than going, "Oh no, if it's not, oh, I can't eat vegan. Oh no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's got to be from an animal," and it's just bizarre. So, yes, so going back to those,
But
those lunches, you're right. I'd forgotten about
could
those.
I move you though, as because of time, to dinners? Because I think that's the main thing.
Yes. Okay.
So
Yeah.
what do you
So
do for
dinners.
dinners, particularly when you're entertaining?
Well, again, entertaining. I tend to try and do a one pot dish because I find it easier. Indian, I do a lot because we
Mm.
love Indian food, and Indian food is very easy to adapt. Um, with potatoes or rice and different sauces,
And again,
and
lentils and
vegetables and
pulses.
lentils,
Mm.
and or, as I said, shepherd's pie or um, uh, mushroom Wellington, which is very easy
Oh, you make a
to
delicious,
make.
yeah,
Um,
delicious one.
yeah, nut roast. And of course, as we're coming into winter, it's been very different to the summer, because summer is much easier because you've just got lots of salads that we just do most days. And but in the winter, it's quite nice to start doing some more hearty food, like the chili con carnes, again made the same way as the sort of shepherd's pie, but with kidney beans and lentils, and um, nut roasts. I like to do those tend to be do more for sort of Christmas
Well,
and Thanksgiving. And
we do Thanksgiving, don't we? Because we used to live in
yes, and we
America for a
do,
while,
but
so
we
we got into
alternate
that.
it with mushroom Wellington, and but then all the trimmings, with all the roast parsnips and the mash and the roast potatoes and all the vegetables and the bread sauce, even made out of alternative nut milk, which is just as delicious. Cauliflower cheese can be made with alternative milks, and a vegan cheese and the cauliflower, and that's very
You just
good.
replace the animal products, and there are so many
Yeah,
great
absolutely. Stir
substitutes.
fries. We love stir fries with lentil noodles, which are great. And a sort of teriyaki sauce, or a any of the sort of
Katsu
stir
curry.
fry katsu curry sauces. That's another one. Katsu curry, massaman curry. I make
Yeah,
with an
that's
alternative,
you do a delicious one of those.
not
Yeah.
chicken pieces. Um, and it's endless, to be
What
honest. It's
about
absolutely
desserts? What
endless.
about desserts?
Well, exciting. I make a lot of crumbles, crumbles from uh, picking our own blackberries and apples from our walks. So we've got a beautiful cherry plum tree in our garden, which we discovered where the plums are edible. So I've frozen those all up for this. Picked them all this summer, cooked them up and put them in the freezer, ready to start making some crumbles for dinner parties. There's a Swiss ice cream which is non-dairy, which we've given to lots of
And lots of
people
people who are not
come to our dinner
vegans have
parties who now use that and
use that
only
because they
that.
prefer it. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. They've got lovely non-dairy creams. Elmley makes a lovely cream, whippable or not whippable. Marks and Spencer's excitedly this year came out with some plant-based meringues, little meringues,
Mm.
which I fill for dinner parties with strawberries and raspberries, and whisk up some Elmley cream and blob that on the top. Yummy. Um, Chocolate brownies. We have pies, apple pies. Stuff made with pastry. All the actually, interestingly, I think it's a cheat really, but everybody seems to do it now. Who I don't know how many people make their own pastry, but just roll uh, pastry, short crust, and puff are vegan. People don't even know it. There's that strudel, apple and fruit strudel that you can buy in most supermarkets in the freezer. That's accidentally vegan. I mean, there is so much stuff people don't even wouldn't even know, but they've probably been eating them for years. And don't care that there's no animal product in it. But the minute you tell them that there isn't, it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, if it's
Well,
not got animal product in it, I need to eat it.
people bang on a lot about protein, of course, and the fact of the matter is
Yes,
that all protein comes from plants. The fact that you get protein from eating a cow or a pig is because those animals are eating vegan food. They're eating
yeah,
plants.
he's like, yeah. So you're getting
And
it third hand,
you're
aren't you?
getting it secondhand. The other thing that people bang on
Exactly.
about is B12. Well, B12 comes from animals. They process B12 in a certain way, but they get it the same way that we get it, which is basically from mineral. It's a mineral that's found in the dirt. We don't get enough, all of us, whether we're vegans or non-vegans, don't get enough B12 because we live so clean now that things get sanitized and the B12 disappears. So everyone really should be taking a B12 supplement anyway, but vegans particularly, it's one that they should take. B12 is absolutely vital. If you're not eating animals, you've got to supplement it in another way. But again, it's second-hand B12 if you're eating an animal, and not a very healthy or sustainable way of getting your B12 or your protein. So that applies to both things. But it's very easy. Just take one tablet a day. They're cheap as chips, B12 tablets, and you'll make sure that you keep your B12 in good shape. But so a lot of people, as I think I mentioned before, are telling us that they're eating more plant-based meals. I think it's great to do that. You don't have to
And
go
much less
completely,
meat. Yeah.
you don't have to go
Yeah.
completely vegan. Have a meatless Monday or a vegan weekend or a vegan week in every month. Whatever you can do, every step in the right direction, however small, is beneficial to the human eating the food, to the animals they would otherwise be eating, and to the human species generally because of the help to our planet Earth where we live by us all living more sustainably and helping fight climate
That's the biggest
change.
thing we can do, isn't it?
The
This is the
biggest thing
planet,
that you can
really.
do is eat less products from animal agriculture, which is terrible for its use of resources, as I mentioned in my solo podcast. But it's terrible for you, for your health, and it's obviously morally questionable to be raising animals to kill them, even if you do it in the most sustainable way, or rather the most humane way that you can. You're still killing something that wants to live and has families and has emotions and feelings like we all do. So it's good to move away from that as much as possible. So, give it a try, and the more that you like giving up the sugar that Christine was mentioning, there is a period of adjustment, but it's our experience, certainly, and experience of all the vegan friends we have, is that you very soon become rather revolted by eating muscle and sinew and blood and guts and all the things that go along with that, as well as eating all the antibiotics that the animals have to be given because they are raised in such filthy conditions. And of course, it's just great to the way you feel when you live on a plant-based diet. It takes much less energy to digest plant food than it does great big chunks of meat. But
Oh, I
anyway,
just need to
that's
throw in quickly, throw in quick, vegan sausages, yummy. So
yeah.
many lovely sausages and mashed potato and onions and gravy and broccoli or whatever
Oh
vegetable
my
you want.
God, there's
I just
so
need to
much.
throw that in.
Anyway,
It's
we're
so
going to
much.
talk. I think
Another thing, just
no,
another
you've got
quick
not.
thing I need to throw in then
Quick,
is that
really quick.
I just want to reverse my statement at the beginning that you said, and obviously when you announced to me, you did not ruin my life, Tony. You've improved my life so incredibly, and I'm
Oh, sweet.
thankful for you
That's a very sweet thing to say.
for
Thank
doing
you.
what you did. So, and I
Thank
love
you.
you for it.
Well, I love you too. So, look, after that mutual loving, uh, just to say thank you to all you listeners for sticking with us. And we're going to talk about other things. I think we may have an episode soon about our recent trip to France, which was interesting from a vegan perspective and from all
Yeah.
kinds of other perspectives. And we'll talk about that. But if you like this, please do share this episode with others. Do subscribe so that you get notifications. It's free to subscribe. Notifications of every new episode that we put out. Do visit our Facebook page and do comment either privately or publicly. It's always good to hear from you. It's always good to get your feedback. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Bye
Goodbye,
bye.
everybody. See you next time.